You now have a choice of 3 missions, but I'd recommend doing this one first. Mainly because, 1, it's simpler than the other 2, and 2, the tutorial on CO powers really fits this mission more than the other 2. Also, this is kind of like the way the other campaigns work. Basically, you start off with 3 missions, and eventually you go on to another group of 3, 1 for each commander. Then there's the optional lab mission, which I'll get to later, and the last one for each country. And this, as you can kind of see by the distribution of enemy units, is a tutorial on air combat. And as a bit of a change, Sammy is going to give the tutorial this time. And because I've already explained about Max, I should probably take this time to talk about how Flak works, because the enemy commanders have their own abilities too. Basically, Flak is, well, he's kind of interesting. His units sometimes attack with more power than normal, but they also have a chance of doing less. So, at best, he's really quite unreliable, and most people would consider him a bad character to use. I mean, he's unlocked right from the start in War Room and multiplayer, but I found a situation where he can actually be useful. But I'll save that for a later mission, one in the Blue Moon campaign. Anyway, missiles are incredibly dangerous against all air units, especially helicopters. They get taken out in one hit by just about anything anti-air. And here is the power meter tutorial. Basically, whenever you damage enemy units, your commander's power meter will fill up slightly. The amount it fills depends on the cost of the enemy you damaged. So for example, destroying a bomber will get you a lot more power meter than destroying one of the helicopters in this mission. And here you can see, you can just check the CO info to see what your powers do. For Max, they're both quite simple, and as I've said before, lend towards his pure offense style. They just increase attack power of direct combat units and movement range. And as you can see with Max, the normal power is usually just a slightly weaker version of the superpower. But in some rare cases, mainly Colin, who you'll see later, the normal power and superpower may be completely different. But generally you have the tactical choice of whether you use your normal power early or save up for the super version. Now, in most cases, it's often, well of course, it's always good to go for the superpower, but in some cases, using your normal power early can be a huge advantage. I mean, I know most beginning players just always save up for the super version, and I mean, that's not bad when you're a beginner, but, you know, sometimes it can be a huge advantage to use, even if it's a weaker boost, to get it early. Now, I actually really like the 2-tier power system in this game. I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, thank God they nerfed the COs in Days of Ruin. I mean, I'm not saying anything against the system in Days of Ruin, I quite like that too. Particularly I like the fact that there's a way to stop your opponent from using their power. But I don't know, I do like this system. I think it's balanced in most cases, because the power meter actually fills up more for the one who's getting attacked. Which means that sometimes they're, oh wait a minute, Flak just said that line there. Now either that's a typo, or Flak's just really, really stupid. Bombers are direct combat units. Anyway, yeah. Because it fills up more for the person who's getting attacked, often the powers are kind of a compensation in a way, for someone who's getting seriously beaten. And in some cases they can turn things around, or at least force the attacker to really rethink their plans. Unfortunately, there's a certain enemy commander, who you'll be seeing later on, who is really, really good at really pissing you off by getting his superpower when you attack him a lot. Now, yeah, something I should explain here. Anti-aircraft guns are good against air units, but if a bomber gets first strike on them, they're going to get seriously crippled, so watch out for that. And once they're weakened, even helicopters could do well against them. It is never a good idea to attack a full health anti-aircraft gun with a helicopter though. Speaking of those units, earlier Sammy mentioned that they're good against infantry. Well, in fact, they're really good against infantry. In fact, they're one-hit kills against infantry if they've got full HP. Yeah, fighters and bombers are a bit more defensive than helicopters are. But still, missiles devastate them anyway. And anyway, my normal power meter is filled up. Now, in this mission, I think it's probably best to use the normal one now. By the time you have enough energy for the superpower, you will have already destroyed most of the enemy troops anyway, so I think it's best to just use the normal level now. Max force. And now these anti-aircraft guns should be able to reach those distant helicopters. And 168%, that's pretty powerful. Speaking of powerful, I heard that in the first Advance Wars, Max had plus 50% offense on direct combat units. Could someone confirm to me if that's true? Because if that is, he would have been broken as hell in that game. Anyway, we'll want to retreat that badly damaged one. And definitely prioritize that bomber, because it's more of a threat, much more of a threat. And I am going to have to split this mission into two parts. So after this devastating helicopter attack, I'll see you in the next part.